Mark Skaar on the Skaar Card, 103.7 The Fox. Proud to welcome in Greg Norton. You know him from Husker. Now you know him from Ultrabomb. Greg, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mark.
The Bridges That We Burn, DC Jam Records. What a great, great album this is. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't be happier with it. I think it's actually maybe the best record I've ever done. So,
and that's saying something.
It is, yeah. You know, the production is so great on this record. Had an absolute joy writing this album with Brian Smith and Derek O'Brien, and really happy with how the songs came together. And I think the artwork on the cover is pretty darn cool, too.
How long did it take you to write the songs?
You know, I started writing the lyrics for this record last summer. A lot of the stuff was written after that first ice surge into Los Angeles in early June, and we live at a time where, unfortunately, every day you turn on the news, you've got something that you could write a song about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the lyrics I worked on for a while last summer, and then when the band got together, I would send Ryan, 3 sets of lyrics, and he would come up with some ideas and do a demo in his home studio and send it back to Derek and I. And then when we finally had a chance to get together, we just hammered out, the arrangements, got everything worked out right, worked out choruses and backing vocals, and Artificial Stars we actually started playing live last August. Kind of the reason why we released that as the first single as well, because we'd already, had put it out there. But, the group actually is pretty efficient. So, we'd kind of work in 3-song blocks and get everything all worked out, and then take it into the studio with John Fields and get those 3 songs recorded, and the next day do the next batch of 3. And we were in the studio for a total of 5 days.
Wow.
And John basically had the record mixed by the time we were done. It was, it only took a few, maybe a couple of weeks after we wrapped up for John to finish the final mixes.
Yeah, 11 songs in 4 days. Creation Studios, that's actually the old Nicollet Studios, right?
Correct. So I've got a lot of history in that building. And the studio that John works in, referred to as Studio B, the smaller of the 2 rooms, that's the first record that we recorded. New Day Rising was the first record that we recorded it in that room with Spot, the last record that Spot did with us for SST. And then the rest of the Husker albums were recorded back in the big room in Studio A. So I thought it was pretty cool that I got to, make another record in the same room that New Day Rising was recorded in.
Had you been back there since, Warehouse?
A couple of years ago, Charlie Parr asked me to come in and lay down some bass tracks on a kind of a long-form improvisational piece that he was recording. And that was the first time I had been back in 35 years or whatever it had been. But The Bridges That We Burn is the first full album project that I've done there since Warehouse.
Talking to Greg Norton from Ultrabomb. You mentioned John Fields. I just love the production he's done on this, and there's just so much separation between, I guess, the 4 instruments, if you count vocals, and I think it's just superb.
Everything sounds great. Everything fits really well in the mix. Nothing is competing with each other. You're not losing vocals because of guitars. You're not losing bass. And, the drum sound is so crisp. It's great. John knows what he's doing. He's a pleasure to work with.
How did you decide on the track listing?
As we were recording each day, we would have, rough mixes from that day's work. And probably by the time we got done or shortly after we got done, I, had the track listing picked out, what I wanted to open side 1 with, end side 1 with, open up side 2, and then closing out the record. I think it flows really well, and actually I think thematically the songs themselves, the lyrics, kind of work together as well. So, yeah, this is, DC Jam is all in behind this record, and they signed a distribution deal with Virgin Music Group last summer as well. So, he's plugged into that network, and they're dedicated to working this record as well. So I'm hoping that a lot of people hear it and buy it and love it.
We're talking to Greg Norton from Ultrabomb. For the uninitiated, the first 2 albums were Time to Burn and Dying to Smile with Finney McConnell and Jamie Oliver. Can you talk about the transition from those guys to Ryan and Derek?
Yeah, the Ultrabomb story basically in the summer of 2021, then he saw that I wasn't, and he and I were like Facebook friends with message back and forth. He saw that I wasn't playing in a band any longer. Porcupine Casey Virock had kind of changed directions with Porcupine and revamped the lineup. So didn't have a gig. So Finney called up and was like, hey, let's put together a band with Jamie Oliver. He's the best punk drummer in the world, and we'll just play some Husker covers and Mahone's covers and throw in some UK subs and maybe some other punk rock classics, and we'll just get together for fun and maybe play some festivals. And it was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah, let's do that. So then September of 2021, Finney was in Berlin, and he let me know a few weeks ahead of time. He's like, hey, I'm going to be in Berlin. I've got 4 days in the studio booked, and I'm thinking about maybe working on some demos for original Ultrabomb music. I had never actually met Finney or Jamie in person, so I decided to fly to Berlin to see if this was actually going to be a thing. You know, it was either going to be a flop or it was going to work. And we met those 2 guys in the studio, and, we wrote Time to Burn and all the music in 2 days.
That's crazy.
We wrote 10 songs in 2 days, and they were all instrumentals, and I'm like, well, I've got all these lyrics. And then he looked at him, and he's like, I've got the whole record figured out, sang all the songs on the last day, and I was like, wow, I can't believe how well my lyrics dovetailed with the music that we wrote. And so it was like, wow, I guess we do have something here. Dying to Smile was kind of recorded in the same fashion. Ultrabomb, that first iteration of Ultrabomb, we were a little bit dysfunctional, being in 3 different countries and 3 different time zones, and we tried to put Time to Burn out ourselves and didn't really know what we were doing and made a lot of mistakes and probably pissed some people off for having to wait forever to get their records. And, we were able to do a couple of tours in the U.S., and one of the major things that we kind of had going against us in North America was Jamie has some visa issues, which he is working on getting cleared up, but it's a process that could take a couple of years, and he can't get into Canada at all, and he can't get a P2 visa here in the U.S. So Finney and I, we were like, we can't wait 2 years to tour North America. We need to play the U.S. We need to play Canada. So we had met Derek O'Brien through Darren Heeman, who was our label guy, and asked him if he wanted to take over on drums. So that's where Derek comes into the picture. Finney and Derek and I played a couple of shows in Labor Day weekend of 2024. At the beginning of 25, we were supposed to do a tour in the Midwest, and we had some Canadian dates booked, and Finney and I had a disagreement over how we need to market the band, get the band in front of rooms full of people. It would be great if just based on our histories and our names that we can sell out rooms, but the reality is people look and they go, Ultrabomb, I don't know who that is. So he stepped aside, said, go ahead and get a different guitar player, and the band is yours. And that's where Ryan Smith enters the picture. And Ryan is a very busy guy. He's the lead guitar player for Soul Asylum. And when Derek and I asked if he wanted to join the band, he, first worked it out, talked to his wife and family first, and then the Soul Asylum guys in management, and it's like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. And he was stoked. And like I said, he's a fantastic songwriting partner, and I'm really happy with how all the songs on this new album came out. There is a little bit of variety there, kind of jumping around. But it still sounds like Ultrabomb.
And it's nice too, Greg, because you two are reasonably close geographically.
Yeah, he lives in St. Paul. I'm in St. Paul quite a bit. I mean, I still have a place in Red Wing, Minnesota, but that's only 45 minutes away from St. Paul. So it's nice to have somebody in the same area code as well as the same time zone. So that helps.
We're talking with Greg Norton from Ultrabomb. The album is called The Bridges That We Burn. I want to take you back to 1985, last fall. This Miracle Year thing came out. What did you think when you heard that it was going to be put together and coming out?
Well, I actually did a lot of work compiling assets and for the Miracle Year, it's something Numero has been wanting to do for some time. So probably starting in the fall of 2024 is when I started listening through to all of the board tapes that we had from 85. And man, was the band just so good and tight that whole year. It's like listening to the shows really brought back a lot of really good memories. And 85 was also a year where, Bob Grant and I were having fun and getting along really well, and everybody was happy. And that box set is really cool. That first two discs are a live show recorded at First Avenue on a 24-track mobile unit. Husker we were planning on releasing a concert video later on in 85, and we were going to put it out on our own Reflex Records. And unfortunately, we weren't able to track down the video, but we had the 24-track tapes, and Bob and a guy named Bo Sorensen mixed the record out in San Francisco, and that's the first two discs is that concert. And actually, Dave Berner makes an appearance during the encore. He got up and sang Helter Skelter. We played that. The old Beatles tune. And then the other two discs are sorted from various live tapes, and we were trying to find every song that Husker Du played in 1985.
Wow.
And I think we did a pretty good job. And it was, like I said, a really fun year. I think the box set looks really great. It sold out in 10 days when it got released, but that was kind of, on one hand, it was like, wow, that's great. And on the other hand, it was a little disappointing because, wow, now it's sold out, and it's the holiday gift-giving season, and it's, Numero is going to repress some, but I really don't know when.
In 1985, I was going to Brown Institute up there for radio and TV, and I'm an 18-year-old metalhead, and I had heard of you guys, but I was too ignorant to realize that living in South Minneapolis on Nicollet Avenue, that studio was up the road, and you guys were recording Candy Apple Gray while I was living there.
Yeah, we were.
But 18-year-old me just wasn't open-minded enough.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just like I didn't get into you guys until Could You Be the One was on 120 Minutes or something, and I said, well, I really like that. And so I went and bought Warehouse on vinyl and saw you guys on Joan Rivers and the Today Show, and so I got on the tail end of that.
Yeah, that's playing on Joan Rivers was a trip. Network studio television. Although actually, because we played on the Today Show, that was back when Johnny Carson was still on the air, and Carson was a little bit petty and bitter about Joan Rivers having her own show, and if you played Joan Rivers' show, you were banned from playing the Carson show.
Blacklisting, yes. What time did you have to get up to do that Today Show?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, the Today Show, on the other hand, we had to be down there by like 2:30 a.m.
Wow.
Because they were shooting the show live from the Hennepin County Government Center, and of course going live at like 6 a.m. But so we had to be there really early to get set up and do the sound check, and we actually brought in coffee and donuts for fans that would also got up that early to get down there, and it was kind of a cold morning. So actually, I'm playing with fingerless gloves on the Today Show. Getting interviewed by Brian Gumble.
Right.
That was kind of weird too. So. And
Jane Pauley was there too, I think.
Yep.
So I know you've been putting some videos together yourselves. I think Ryan's been doing that. That's been cool too.
Yeah. So the Look Forward in Anger video was put together by Ryan's brother, Randy. Randy is a videographer. And he's working on another video for Artificial Stars. And the No Cap video was something that Ryan just kind of put together on his own, just kind of on his phone. And, it's one of those things where videos get people's attention more than just, hey, here's a link to a song. It's like, hey, here's a video you can watch.
Or a lyric video or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. If you had to pick a song or two, which ones are your favorite, Greg?
Off the new album?
Yeah.
I really love Darwin Awards, our label wanted, Darren thought that was well, like, oh, you gotta have that one as a single. And I'm like, no, I think we need to hold that one back because I think it might be the best song on the record. So let's release these other singles, and then when people actually get the album and they drop the needle on side one, and we hit them with Darwin Awards. Really like that one a lot. You know, there's a couple of songs that I just love how they turned out. You know, I think Zombie Zeros is like a really fun kind of metal romp sort of song. That was a lot of fun to play. I really like the way the Last Time turned out. I loved Brian's vocals in that, and just kind of got a little bit of kind of a funky break to it. And actually the Mosquito Crucifixion, the Suicide Commandos cover, I really love how that turned out. It's got like a little kind of glam rock feel to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's 32 minutes of hooks. That's what it is.
Yep.
So that's something to be proud of.
I think, you know, radio, they can take that album and almost put on any song, and I think listeners will respond to it.
Greg, I think that's all I've got, but I want to thank you for your time and appreciate it. And I'm just loving this record. I think it's going to be in the top 10 for sure this year. Thank you for your time and all the best going forward with Ultrabomb.
Thanks for having me on, Mark, and hopefully we'll see you this summer.
That's Greg Norton from Ultrabomb. I'm Mark Skaar on the Skaar Car, the new classic rock that rocks on 103.7 The Fox.